Hey guys, welcome back to Euro MMA Zone. Dana White just delivered the verdict the entire MMA world was waiting for, and it was not the one many people expected. Kamaru Usman is not done, and the most powerful man in combat sports just made that absolutely clear. UFC Oklahoma City ended with a unanimous decision loss for the Nigerian Nightmare against former middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis. 5 rounds, 3 scorecards, all pointing in one direction. And immediately, the retirement conversation that follows every veteran fighter after a difficult loss began circling around one of the most decorated welterweights in UFC history. Then Dana White stepped to the microphone, and what he said changed everything about how Saturday night should be understood and remembered. Let's start with the context that White led with, because it is the most important piece of information in this entire story, and it deserves to be front and center before any judgment is passed on Usman's performance. Du Plessis built his entire UFC career at 185 pounds. He is a middleweight by nature, by history, and by physical build. Usman spent his championship reign, the reign that made him one of the most dominant welterweights ever to compete in the octagon, at 170 pounds. That 15-pound weight class difference is not a minor detail. That is a fundamental physical disparity that affects every exchange, every grappling position, every moment of pressure, and every sustained effort across 5 championship rounds. Usman chose to go up in weight to chase an opportunity. He stepped into the cage against a bigger man with a different physical frame and competed for 5 full rounds on the biggest stage available to him. White did not miss that context, and he refused to let the scorecards tell the complete story. His exact words at the post-fight press conference were as direct and as clear as anything he has said about a fighter's career status in years. Obviously a great fight. Kamaru was fighting a much bigger guy. He's got a great chin. He's still got it. It's not like, oh, Usman's done and he should retire. He had a great fight tonight. He's got to go home, rest, heal up, and figure out what's next. Break that down sentence by sentence, because each one carries significant weight. He's still got it. That is Dana White, the man who has watched more elite fighters at the end of their careers than almost anyone alive. The man who has seen the physical and mental decline that signals when a fighter's time has genuinely passed. And he is looking at Usman's performance on Saturday night and saying those words. He has still got it. That is not a polite consolation statement. That is a genuine assessment from someone who understands the sport at the deepest level and is drawing a clear distinction between a fighter who lost because they are finished and a fighter who lost because they faced a physically larger opponent under difficult circumstances. Now let's talk about what Usman himself revealed after the fight, because this layer of the story makes his performance even more remarkable than the scorecards suggest. An early eye strike in round 2 left Usman seeing double for significant stretches of the contest. Think about what that means in the context of a 5-round fight against Dricus du Plessis, a fighter known for long, rangy shots that are difficult to read even with perfect vision. A man who uses his physical frame and pressure over extended periods to accumulate damage and control the contest. Usman was trying to track, time, and evade all of that, while his vision was fundamentally compromised from round 2 onward. He won the 5th round on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards, fighting with blurred double vision against a bigger former middleweight champion in the championship rounds, and still winning that final period on most scorecards. That is not the performance of a finished fighter. That is the performance of a warrior who refuses to quit regardless of what circumstances are thrown at him. Usman also hinted at a separate, undisclosed issue he carried into the fight, something he refused to elaborate on while making clear that every fight of his career has involved managing similar hidden challenges. The difference between those fights and Saturday night is simply the result. When you win, nobody ever hears about what you overcame to get there. Now the bigger picture questions that this performance and White's response raise for the future. Where does Usman go from here? The immediate answer from White is simple and sensible. Go home. Rest. Heal. Give the body and the mind the space to recover from a demanding 5-round performance against a physically superior opponent. Then assess everything with clear eyes and make the decision that is right for the fighter and the career. The weight class question is genuinely fascinating. Usman moved up to middleweight to chase a title shot opportunity when the welterweight queue was too long. He lost to Du Plessis at 185. But the loss came against a man who lived at that weight for his entire career. Does Usman return to 170 where his body is more naturally positioned, and where his resume already establishes him as one of the greatest champions in divisional history? Or does he stay at 185 and target a different opponent, one closer to his own natural size, to prove he can compete in that division? White did not answer those questions Saturday night, and he was right not to. These decisions deserve time, reflection, and proper recovery rather than immediate reactive choices made in the emotional aftermath of a difficult loss. There is also a title shot conversation that remains legitimately open. Usman's losses have come to Leon Edwards, Khamzat Chimaev, and now Du Plessis, three elite fighters operating at the top of their respective divisions. These are not losses to fighters whose credentials are questionable. These are defeats against some of the most legitimate competitors in the sport during a period when Usman was either adjusting to weight class changes or dealing with hidden physical challenges that nobody ever hears about when the result goes the right way. At 39 years old, age is inevitably part of the conversation, but age means different things for different fighters. Usman has always been a physical specimen who has managed his body intelligently throughout his career. White's assessment that he still has it is not ignoring the age factor. It is making a clear distinction between a fighter whose physical tools have genuinely declined and a fighter who lost a specific fight against a specific opponent under specific circumstances. That distinction matters enormously for what comes next. Du Plessis leaves Oklahoma City with a significant win that repositions him in the middleweight title conversation following his loss to Khamzat Chimaev. He used every physical advantage available to him across 5 rounds and deserves full credit for a dominant performance against a former welterweight champion operating outside his natural weight class. But the defining narrative of UFC Oklahoma City's main event is not Du Plessis winning. The defining narrative is what Dana White said at the press conference. One of the most celebrated former champions in welterweight history is not done. He fought a bigger man, dealt with a compromised eye, managed an undisclosed physical challenge, competed for 5 full rounds, and won the final period on most scorecards. That is the Kamaru Usman story from Saturday night, and according to Dana White, the next chapter is still to be written. Rest, heal, decide, then come back. The Nigerian nightmare is not finished. He just needs to figure out what the next fight looks like. Drop your prediction in the comments. What is the perfect next fight for Kamaru Usman, and what weight class should he compete at? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching.